Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition, our Let's Play series against XTRG. It is March 16th of 1942. I think this is turn 101, or actually the replays for turn 100, I believe. And we are working our way through the Pacific War ever so slowly. The series has been going on for over 2 years. We're just past the halfway mark in March, and so far things are going. There's the challenges you would expect for the Allied forces. Singapore is on the verge of falling. Palembang has fallen. But overall, I think things are going reasonably well for the Allied forces. Singapore's held more than a month longer than it historically did. Bataan is not even remotely threatened yet, and so I think things are going tolerably. Meanwhile, we do have some submarines here that are getting depth charged by Japanese patrol boats near the Dutch East Indies there. You can see the Shark was hit by one depth charge. Looks like the Finback, a U.S. destroyer firing at some Japanese destroyer, U.S. submarine, firing at Japanese destroyers, missed its target and is now going to be the subject to Japanese depth charging as well. Pixel, you've heard my radio introductory voice before, have you not? I don't sound any different, do I? Alright, we'll fast forward through this. Hopefully the Finback scrapes out of there without too much damage. Looks like 3 hits to it. It was attacking a convoy by the looks of it. It fired its torpedoes at a destroyer, but it looks like 1 troop transport, 1 cargo ship, 1 AMC, so probably bringing more men into Palembang to help the Japanese repair the oil facilities there. More submarine activities going on in Palembang itself. I need to get those U.S. subs out of there. They're basically sitting in a river. Japanese torpedoes firing at the Colombo, a Allied light cruiser off the northwest coast of Australia. We've got a screening force there off the northwest coast of cruisers and destroyers to help prevent any surface raiders that might end up going, in toward Perth. You can see the I-153 fired 6 torpedoes at the light cruiser Colombo. We did get 1 depth charge hit on it. Maybe like a G-Man, but we have a lot of commerce going through that area, so I don't want to just leave it all completely abandoned. Okay, so we're moving on into the air phase. The air operation phase will start here shortly. You can see the coast watchers reporting sighting various ships. You can hear the radio communication phase. It looks like there's a fast transport into Tarapo on the north or the southwestern tip of New Guinea, or I guess southeastern western tip. I don't know, a little bit west of Port Moresby. Looks like a relatively quiet turn so far. All right, we've got the recon patrol planes are out hunting for enemy submarines and enemy vessels. It looks like there was an air operation that was canceled over Bangkok. Maybe an enemy patrol there, potentially due to bad weather. You can see here there's a large Japanese bombing raid coming in on Singapore here. 37 Sallies, 10 Lilies, and 4 Anns. You can see they lost 12 aircraft damage, supposedly. Supply took 1 hit, Airbase 4, runway 24. That's a pretty good amount of damage there, but they didn't actually bomb the troops, so they're probably just ensuring that we don't lose anything in the way of, or we don't build more in the way of fortifications. Sean Mack, thank you very much for the resub there. Appreciate it. 2 months now at Tier 1. Second raid came in there. A bunch more Japanese aircraft hit and damaged by flak. He's coming in a little bit lower, so I didn't notice that on the first raid, but he's coming in at 17,000 feet. Previously, he had primarily been coming in at higher altitudes. Red Foreman, thanks for the follow. Meanwhile, another trailing raid of Sally's, 4 of them came in there. Yeah, Newhauser, but a lot of depth charges claim they're critical hits. I don't know, it didn't say it sank. Newhauser, I don't know if you saw the chaos I caused over on Tortuga's Discord. Did you get the @ here? You probably did. I feel like a kid who does something and then gets a toy taken away, because I'm pretty sure my privileges for that are gone now. I really want to try it again just to see if I still have the permissions, but if I do and I'm wrong and I still have those permissions, then yeah, that'll be fun. Oh, you're on a tractor. All right. Aww. All right, so Japanese bombardment attack at Singapore. They haven't yet gone for the coup de grace here yet. I thought with that extra division of troops and the somewhat effective aerial and artillery bombardments over the last few weeks that maybe they would go for a ground attack, but not yet. You can see they did bombard our troops there, knocked out 15 squads, 4 of them destroyed, 150 men. Pretty effective bombardment for them, although they did have 9 of their guns either destroyed or disabled. So that's a fair amount of disabled or destroyed units there. Meanwhile, our 2 Chinese corps here northeast of Guilin getting hit here. We've got about 400 assault value between the 2 corps. You can see the Japanese are attacking with 3 infantry divisions and 2 Army HQ units there. They get 1-to-1 assault odds, so not good for us. They lose 1,100 men, 98 squads disabled, 2 destroyed. We lose 1,500 men, 8 squads destroyed, 84 disabled. So they actually lose more men disabled, which might require them to take a bit of a breather, but maybe not. He's obviously got the advantage, and he probably wants to drive me back before I can bring any more reinforcements in, given the terrain obviously favors the defense. So he may continue attacking there. We'll have to take a look at what our troops look like. Defense value there, again, was 407 starting the battle. Only adjusted up to 511, so that's interesting. They didn't get much of a perk for the terrain. The Japanese assault was buffed pretty well, but that looks like he got a pretty good roll there. He didn't lose anywhere near 1 to 3 odds in terms of the terrain modifiers there. Allied bombardment at Rabaul. We sent some of our troops of the Lark Battalion back to Rabaul, and it looks like the Japanese only have a base force here. They got a bunch of construction units, and then they've got a base force. So I wonder if he pulled out all his good troops from Rabaul. The Lark Battalion went in there without really much in the way of any supplies. I don't think I've got enough assault value to overwhelm his troops with the Lark base battalion because they've got no supplies. I think that base force is probably enough to hold in place. But we'll see. Maybe we'll launch a shock attack just to see what happens if we can't hurt some of his non-combatant units. That's unfortunate, Sean Mack. Tell Tortuga he's overreacting. I did not think I had that capability. I thought literally nothing would happen. Although I guess when I hit the thing and it said, this might send a message to over 200 people, I should have been conscious of what that meant. The capability was probably on, huh? Okay. Doesn't look like a very active turn. It's pretty quiet, actually. Only 1 real major land battle in China. Just some bombardment attacks in Singapore. 1 depth charging attack. It would be great if we could take those construction battalions out, Southern. I'm not convinced we can. It looked like his base force had like almost double my attack value anyway. He doesn't have very many aircraft here. I wonder if we get a lot better intelligence now that we have troops on the same hex as him. But I am going to go ahead and just, you know what, why the hell not? Let's launch a shock attack. We're going to get penalized for no supply. Shock attacks do better with no supply. I can't really pull any of these troops out very effectively, I don't think, anyway. Flying Catalinas to a hostile enemy base is probably not a sound strategy. So let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can... you're still cleaning up the mess. You know, Tortuga, the replay's over. You missed that. We're going to launch a shock attack at Rabaul. It'll probably go as well as me doing an at here to over 200 people on your Discord. We have no supply, but again, I think we are less penalized in a shock attack for supply because it's kind of like fixing your bayonets and charging. And you know what? If they get wiped out, they get wiped out. They're lost anyway, so I might as well try to do something with them. Meanwhile, he landed troops north here at Tarapo. There's no troops there. There's no supply there, but he did land troops up there. He can build that into an air base. Port Moresby, meanwhile, has still held on, which is good for him because my engineers keep improving the quality of the runway there. The runway damage is down to 34%. Service damage and port damage are still up above 85, but he hasn't attacked here. in quite a few turns. He must be trying to get everything ready. The one side effect of that is the 45th Battalion Brigade and the Port Moresby Brigade both are back to full supply. I mean, there's nothing in stockpile, so we're probably not going to see like any of our disabled squads rescued or anything like that. But we at least have these troops back in full supply, so if he launches another attack, we'll be able to hopefully resist him effectively. Yeah, maybe I should have flown him into Moresby or used some transports to get him out of there with some float planes earlier before he brought in large amounts of aircraft into the Solomon Sea and Coral Sea area. But alas, I didn't. And now they're too far away. I don't want to stage any aircraft out of Moresby. That would be too risky because one strong kick and we'll lose everything there, including the aircraft on the ground. We could take some stuff out of Alaska Southern. So if we do take a look up here, there is, I think, a regiment at Kodiak. So the 201st Separate Infantry Regiment is currently assigned to the Pacific Fleet. So it is not assigned to a restricted HQ. It does have 91 good quality American infantry squads. Doesn't really have much in the way of artillery, but 37mm anti-tank guns aren't bad. That might be a unit worth moving, potentially. I've kind of left it in place, mainly because I don't want to leave the northern route to the U.S. too exposed. But it is something we could consider. Really, the thing I've got my eye on next is a division at Tacoma. I've got my eye on the 45th Infantry Division here, which can be shifted to other headquarters. I don't have enough political points to move it yet, but we're only about 800 political points away from having enough to unlock that whole division. Rather than a slightly larger division for 400 extra political points, I think it's the 40th or something like that down near San Francisco, this division would be 266 infantry squads, a good amount of support equipment, good quality, good training. It'd be a nice unit to have, but I have to save my political points up a little bit more to do that. Sneak attack on Midway from Alaska, maybe, I don't know. We'd have to prepare for it. We'd need to give it a couple of weeks or you'd lose a lot of troops in the landings. I also don't know what he has there. If he's got like a full-blown infantry regiment and they've been digging in, a regiment of our own might not be enough. Meanwhile, Pearl's relatively quiet this turn. Not a lot going on. We are repairing some ships here, so it looks like the heavy cruiser Portland, which was in the shipyards following some heavy sailing and moving around, will be done tomorrow. 2 destroyers will be done in 3 days. The submarine Argonaut will be done in 5, and the battleship Oklahoma will be ready in 12. So that's the status there. Not a lot going on, really. I mean, we're loading fuel in San Francisco, so we're doing some stuff there. I think we had sent some troops onto some transports on the way to some different islands throughout the Pacific. So the coast, which are actually northwest of Australia, we threw some U.S. Space Force units, some field artillery units, and a combat engineer regiment on some transports that are heading out that way. It's a long, long way. I don't know if they're actually going to end up at that objective. We'll see, but I do want to reinforce the coast, or actually even put some troops in the coast islands so he can't. If he puts aircraft on Christmas Island, that's not too bad. It's relatively close to the Dutch East Indies, but coast would make supply routes between Colombo and Australia basically a pain in the ass. We'd have to push our shipping all the way to the west coast of the map, like all the way over into this vicinity, which would not be very efficient from like a fuel and supply perspective. Sean Mack, you can post links apparently. What are you posting anyway? Okay, so that's the situation there. Again, we're loading up a bunch of fuel on this tanker task force. We've got another one about to head back to Los Angeles. 2 more arrived this turn, so we will probably have 2 tanker task forces totaling around 120,000 or so fuel on their way to Australia in the next couple of days. We also have 22,000 fuel unloading in Perth in Australia right now off of these tankers and cargo ships. We have recently unloaded other tankers. You can see here 4 tankers on their way back to Colombo here. We've got the tanker British Sailor heading west as well. We have another 20,000 coming in on cargo ships that'll be arriving in the next few days also. And then we've got some other ships on the way back to Perth from other locations. and other ships on the way back to Colombo. Here's the light cruiser task force, which was hit by the enemy subs, or at least which shot back against the enemy subs. We're going to return to Perth just to replenish their fuel. You can see their fuel supply is pretty low, so we'll go ahead and return them there. No auto disband. They should just go into the port and refuel. Then we can send them back out. I don't like the idea of having all the shipping passing north and south without some kind of guard, at least on the northwest Australian coast, in the event the Japanese try and raid from Timor or something like that. Also, it helps us pick up some of those subs if they do run into that route as well. If we take a look at last turn in terms of ships sunk, it is claiming we did sink the I-153 on Fog of War track there. You can see it's claiming we hit it with a depth charge near Exmouth, which was down here, and that we sank it. I think that's unlikely, but, you know, who knows? I guess it's possible. Meanwhile, we also did get one thing was updated here in the ship sinking area. So the Mitsu, I think it was claimed to have blown up in an explosion. That ship is now gone. It's been removed from here. So we know, and we've since seen it in battle, so we knew it didn't sink. But it's now officially been removed from the ship sunk section. The Congo's still here. I don't think the Congo sank either. We do know that the Haruna did sink, though. In terms of political points, 1171 down here. We're working to get it up to 1900. The Japanese this turn are closing in on our victory point total. So our victory points are at 10,895. The Japanese are at 10,191. As soon as Singapore falls, that will fling over to their side. You can also see the fighting here in China. These two units here have been bloodied pretty badly, actually. They had 400 assault value. They're down to 272. So we've lost a lot of strength on these two Chinese corps. They've been they're being grinded down by the Japanese. Fortunately, not a ton in the way of destroyed units, so we can pull them back and they can get back up to strength. But they are suffering a fair bit of disruption as a result of these battles. The 14th Corps has 263 units that are currently disabled, only 67 ready infantry squads for combat. So we are ordering them to pull back west 1 hex. They're 14 miles there. They'll need about 3 more days to get there, maybe 2 more, probably 3 more days to get there, and to get to this hex. We do have reinforcements on the way. The 66th Chinese Corps is 14 miles between Guilin and Luchou, so they will arrive with almost as much strength as both of those two corps combined had at the start of this campaign, 441 assault value. We also have the 3rd Chinese Cavalry Corps with another 203 assault value on the way there. The only downside is if they arrive now, it basically just slightly increases their strength from their previous losses. So really, we need to try and get these guys out of here as quickly as we can because they're just taking losses that we're going to replace the losses, but we're not going to grow stronger as a result of those losses. So that's a little bit frustrating. Good news also, these 3 Chinese corps coming down from the south, about 1,000 assault value here, the 79th, 99th, and 53rd Corps, are all making pretty good time marching down through these mountain passes. They're only 92 miles away from Guilin, and then just a short 46-mile hop northeast. If we can hold the line 1 hex north of Guilin, that would be great, because while I said these 2 corps will only bring us back up to the loss of these 2 that are getting badly bloodied, these 3 corps would, more than double our strength, actually almost triple our strength. So that might allow us to hold out a little bit better and slow the Japanese down a little bit more. Thomas James Carroll, thank you very much for the follow. That's a mouthful. So let's see here. Comfitbid, not a ton happened this turn. We still haven't seen any attacks or any fighting up north. You can see it looks like at least one Chinese or Japanese unit is moving north back to where these corps are currently digging in the mountains. You can see here we've got several of the corps are now dug in at level 1. The HQs aren't, but at least all the infantry units are dug in at level 1. Just south of Sian. Meanwhile, there's 2 Japanese brigades to the east of Sian. We're also pulling one of these corps back to this hex so the Japanese can't swing north and try and get around us. So we'll do that. Meanwhile, some additional reinforcements are headed south, the elements of the 54th Chinese Corps. I'm also sending some troops back west to Kunming. I've got some troops on the way to Tsuyong. And I've also got a couple of units of the 5th Chinese Corps that will be eventually making their way to Mandalay to reinforce Burma, but they're a little ways away from that, so it's going to be a while before they arrive there. unfortunately, but that's just the reality of it. I can't get them there sooner than I can get them there, so they're working their way. Meanwhile, at Pegu, we've got the 63rd, 16th, and Indian brigades, as well as the 48th Gurkha Brigade, which make up elements of a Indian division that is the 17th Indian Division. And tomorrow, after tomorrow, the 63rd will be unloaded from their rail cars, so they should be able to form that division if we want to link all those units together. Meanwhile, in Rangoon, we did receive some new aviation units here, so we unloaded the, where are they? The where the heck are they? The RAF 223 group. So this group had 75 new aviation support. That means that we have sufficient aviation support at Rangoon now at this time. You can see here we have 184 aviation support for 164 aircraft. That's great news. That should help slow the attrition of our airframes. That should prevent a large number of them being out of service or being unable to fight. You can see now we have 137 frontline fighters at Rangoon. We have 128 of them currently serviceable. So all very good news on the defensive there. That's a lot of flipping aircraft. A large number of them are Hurricanes, which actually outperform the Zero at altitude. So that's good news for us as well. Stein 2883, thank you very much for the sub. That's 6 months now you've been subbed to the channel. Appreciate it. So you can see here, I think our air defense in Rangoon is in good shape. We are also continuing to evacuate troops out of the Dutch East Indies to Rangoon via PBY Catalinas. The elements that have been pulled out so far in the recent turns are elements of the 224 group. So 600 of the load cost of this 224 group. It's an HQ unit that provides aviation support. And I think can also have torpedoes. We almost have more than half that unit out. Tomorrow should be the changeover when the parent unit, the 224 group, so the one that's in Rangoon right now is 224-2. The parent group, which is just 224 and is what allows you to order torpedoes and stuff like that, is still at Sabang. But that's because its load cost that's remained behind in Sabang is greater than the units currently in Rangoon. So the difference is about 36 load cost. So I would imagine that'll flip next turn. And we'll probably have the entire 224 group out in about 3 days. Meanwhile, we've also pulled out a very badly battered Punjab battalion, or at least a large amount of it, out of Singapore. So the 5th, 14th Punjab battalion here had there's 4 squads that are in Sabang. There are 30 squads moving up via rail to Sabang from Medan, where they saw a short shuttle run across from Singapore. So we got about 30 infantry squads out, 2 Bren units, 2 mortars, 27 support out of Singapore. And these guys, we pulled them out largely because this unit is almost entirely disabled, just a handful of active squads. So losing them out of the defense of Singapore won't make a difference, but it will save us a little bit of the way of victory points. And it'll also allow us to get some free Indian infantry units that we can bring back to the continent to help defend Burma. So we're railing these guys up to Sabang. They'll meet up next turn. They'll all link up. There are a few other units that were left behind at Singapore. It's the 5th, 14th... 5th, 14th... Oh, the parent unit's still back there? That's weird. Because it only has 315 load cost as opposed to 702. I would hope these guys would merge. When these 2 units merge, they'll become the parent. But I don't know what the rules are on that. We won't be able to move the motorized support. There's 7 motorized support squads. That's all that's left in Singapore. There's no way for us to move those via air. They don't let you move units that are that heavy via air. So we'll have to see what comes of it. But in any event, that'll be about 30 infantry squads. I will probably, once the 224 group finishes moving to Rangoon, begin to move these guys via air. But I'm doing one other thing here. I'm bringing down one more transport, the Felix Roussel, a free French unit here. And I'm going to try and load those troops up on this troop transport and swing them north to Rangoon. It's a little bit of a dicey situation. The Japanese have a lot of air cover in Malaya, so they could definitely attack and destroy that guy without too much difficulty, but I am going to try it anyway. We did that with parts of the 223 group aviation HQ unit here, and we were able to get them out successfully. 46 support units are on their way to Rangoon, so that's the hope there. Meanwhile, in Rangoon, we did see the completion of quite a few cargo ships here unloading their cargoes here in Rangoon. We've got a few more that are literally just about to finish up, less than 4% of their cargoes still to unload. That'll basically free the docks up entirely for a new cargo task force coming in, Task Force 136, a task force that consists of 8 cargo ships carrying 47,000 supplies and 200 fuel into Rangoon. That'll be added to the already almost 80,000 supplies currently stashed in Rangoon that we are using to keep those air units up and running, that we're using to continue building up those fortifications in the port, that we're using to hopefully repair and reform some of these infantry units that are not in the greatest shape. That supply is also flowing forward to Pegu, where we've got about 20,000 supply that is defending these 3 divisions, the 1st Burma, 18th British, and then the elements of the 17th Indian Division. About 1,100 assault value there altogether. Those 3 divisions have about 20,000 supply they can pull from Pegu. And then we've got the BFF and 47th Indian Brigades just a little bit further south, about 200 assault value that will pull their supply out of Rangoon. Additionally, some of that supply is beginning to flow east. So you've got Tungo, you've got Malika, you've got Mandalay, all those units with 8,000 plus supply. Lashio has 12,000 plus supply, and that supply is flowing very slowly into China. Chongqing actually has 44,000 supply right now, and I'm hoping that we'll see more of this large cache of supply in Rangoon flow east into China as we continue to ramp up the amount of supply there in the base. Sabang, what defense do I have Sabang to prevent against a surprise landing? I can't really hold Sabang, but there are 2 Dutch infantry, but there's a Dutch infantry battalion with about 60 infantry squads here, 60 assault value here, reasonably good unit there. And then there's the NS KNIL Territorial Regiment with about 99 infantry squads that are in defense there. Neither of them have good experience, but that's 170 assault value, as well as the engineering forces there with 75mm coastal defense guns. Those are small coastal defense guns, but there's something. The Langsha base defense unit has pulled forward there as well. Looks like that's mainly just aviation support, so not a lot there. I wonder if we could pull some of those guys out. There's only 1 engineer, though. The TOE doesn't even support much of anything there anyway, so that might not make a lot of sense. But yeah, so that's the situation there. In terms of Palembang has fallen, you can see we'll need to pull these guys out. There's a whole bunch of subs in this area, which are basically operating in a river, and they're taking a lot of system damage and float damage and other things like that. So I'll have to pull those guys out. The Finbacks over here. You also saw the Shark, which took a little bit of damage over here. So we'll have to pull most of these subs away from Palembang in the immediate future. Meanwhile, not a lot of other activity over here in the Dutch East Indies. We are trying to pull, I think, the Southeast Borneo KNIL Battalion out to Batavia. So you can see we've actually pulled 3 infantry squads and a Vickers squad. So about 4 assault value here, reinforcing to Batavia. We're pulling them out of Borneo, or as much as we can in any event, with flying boats, with the handful we have there. So we're moving like 2 squads a day. It's a slow process, but these guys have a reasonable amount of supply. They're not in supply, but they're not out of supply all the way. So if we could pull back, 20 infantry squads, put them into Batavia before the Japanese attack, and use the 62,000 supply currently available to us in Batavia to bring those units back up to strength, it'd be great. It'd be really nice to be able to add a little bit more strength to the defense there, which I'm hoping we might be able to do by getting some of these troops out of their situation. I looked at doing the same thing for Kuching, but it's a little bit too far north for us to do that. It'd be great to pull the 215th Punjab Battalion out as well, but I think they're a little bit too remote for us to be able to effectively get at. You can see they're about 14 hexes away. We might be able to swing that. What about Meaden? How far? I think they're definitely too far for the aircraft at Meaden. I would totally pull them into Singapore. If I wasn't worried that the base could fall any day, I would throw my transports into Singapore and then suck those troops into Kuching, which would well, not substantially, but it would strengthen the defense in Singapore as well. The aircraft we have at Meaden are starting to fall apart. Also, you can see 1 out of 3 PBYs is currently disabled. 1 out of 2 of the Singapores are disabled. The cargo ships, 6 of the 12 Lodestars are disabled. 2 of the 8 DC-2s. That's because I'm operating these guys in a base where there isn't a substantial aviation support. We've only got 8 aviation support. We've got 36 aircraft. So aircraft will break down with time there. P. Warner, some of that supply may flow into Tokyo eventually. The supply in Rangoon is what you're talking about. My overarching plan is as soon as we see him push on this rail line, what we'll do is we will turn the requested supply in Rangoon all the way, well, it's already kind of all the way down. But what we'll do is we'll jack the requested supply in Lashio up all the way, and that way it will pull everything south of here into Lashio, so we can drain Rangoon of supply. We'll leave some behind, though, for some kind of siege. So that's the idea there. The troops in Bataan still got 17,000 supply. Remember, we ran like 30,000 extra supply up there before he really cut things off there. So we're doing okay there, about 1,900 assault value. The troops there are in generally good shape. Some of the units are seeing... you know what I should do is these guys' experience is 34. I should set these guys to training. 1, they'll use less supply. 2, if their experience is, if they're prepared for the objective, they'll train and they'll get better experience. So if I set all these guys, where is train? I set rest, but that didn't do anything. Do I not have a rest option for these guys? I can't rest or train these guys. Oh, I guess that's because they're in a hex with enemy soldiers. Lame. Never mind. Meanwhile, the troops on Mindanao are holding out way longer than historically was the case, but they're in rough shape as well. Their supply situation is not getting any better. Anything for our cruisers or destroyers to raid the southern? Not that I can see anyway. I don't see a lot of Japanese shipping. I mean, I'm sure there's some. We've detected something moving southwest here, probably into Balikpapan. I need more subs in place to really pick up enemy task forces, but right now we don't see a lot. We can take a look at our SIGINT and see what that says. You can see here the 22nd Japanese Air Force Battalion is at Kendari. You can see some units at Tokyo. 65th Brigade's planning for an attack in Semarang. Where is Semarang? Let's take a look. Oh, okay. Interesting. So that might tell us that he's planning to land at Semarang, which would make a lot of sense. Take a look here. Semarang. Base forces moving to Iba. I'll have to take a look and see where that is. Makassar, which is over here, already in Japanese hands. You know, it would make sense that he's not going to land at Surabaha. That's how you pronounce it. The fort level is only at 1 here. We need to increase that. I don't really have any engineers here to do that. But I do think he may be landing at Semarang. That seems to be what the intelligence is implying, is that he's going to make a landing here. Where's Iba again? Why didn't I not see that on there? Yi Chang. Or is it Liba? Why did I not see that? Where is that? Liba. Maybe it's already in Japanese hands. I don't know if this doesn't show enemy bases. That would probably be why. Yeah. Not in Japan, not in our hands. So that's on the Philippines. So he's moving some troops, some artillery, I think it was, to the Philippines, which would make sense if he's looking at working to reduce Bataan eventually. That being said, we did detect that he's moving a brigade, or he's preparing for a brigade to attack here. Now, preparations don't mean that's where he's going to attack. He could be using that as some sort of misinformation to draw my forces away. That is certainly possible. But Semarang would work nicely for him as a landing spot. It's got level 5 port, so he can bring in heavy reinforcements, efficient shipping, all those kind of things. It doesn't have much in the way of oil. If he lands at Surabaya, he'll need to lay down a thick bombardment fire, which will damage the refineries and oil wells there. Batavia as well. Also, Batavia has a huge amount of troops there, so he probably doesn't want to land in an area that's quite as contested as that. Semarang, he's probably got some intelligence that there's very little in the way of defense forces here from recon strikes. It's within easy air coverage range from Bandar Jasmine or long-range bomber support from Mascar and Swingkang. Semarang would make a lot of sense for a landing place, and so I'm wondering if we don't move in some reinforcements there to try and help the defense. It is also clear terrain, which will work in his favor as well, which will make it much more difficult to defend. I'll have to do some of that offline, probably. I don't think I can move most of my coastal guns, though, because most of my coastal guns are in engineer units, like the Batavia Base Force, which is static. Or is it not? It's not static. But this doesn't even have any coastal guns, just some anti-aircraft guns. I thought I had most of these guys set to strat move, but I guess they're set to rest. Mainly to try and get their experience up. Part of me wonders if we just shouldn't move a whole regiment here, one of our 3 big regiments or 4 big regiments in the southern part of the map over that way. I don't know if we want to meet him on the beach or if we want to fall back to Batavia. That's the question. This base has 120 millimeter coastal guns, but again, he's not going to land here. I'll have to look into that offline. We'll see. I don't have a lot else to show you guys this turn. The carriers are moving toward Tasmania to refuel, so they're going to park themselves in Hobart, and then we've got some tankers coming down to replenish them. Hobart is a nice port there, level 4 port. It can take ships up to 24,000 tons. That won't be the carriers, I don't think. I don't think any of them are small enough for that. The Lady Lex is 36,000 tons. The cruisers can dock there and replenish, but the carriers can't. Actually, the Enterprise can. Just the Saratoga class can't. Yeah, Southern, I get that, but it's also clear terrain, so if he brings a heavy bombardment task force there, all of our troops will basically just melt away when he hits it with battleships. So if we do try and contest him on the beach, it has to be very tactical and very thoughtful. If we race in, heavy units of ours in there, they're most likely just to die, and it'll make his landings that much easier. Well, the Enterprise was a Yorktown class, Sean Mack. Oh, sorry, I misread your statement. So yeah, the Lexingtons can't, but the Yorktowns can. The British cruiser carriers probably can too. And then I think once we get to Hobart, then we can kind of make a decision about what we want to do with our carriers. So we did move the Hermes east as well. The intent for the Hermes is it currently lost its air group because it was ordered to withdraw. So it only has 20, it can hold 20 aircraft, but it doesn't have any on board right now. I think my plan is going to bring one of the fighter units here on Suva south. So I think we'll throw one of these Marine F4F units onto the Hermes, and then that will give the Hermes basically another carrier fighter wing to protect whoever it's with. So even though the Hermes is slow and inefficient, she might be able to act as like a fourth fleet carrier strictly for the purpose of providing additional cap. Because that's not that, I mean, most of the fleet carriers have around 27 aircraft for their cap, but I know we'll suffer heavy ops losses. Marines operating off a carrier, but that's my idea anyway. Ramgar, thank you very much for the follow, or not the follow, the bits. Appreciate it, dude. I like this a lot more than Strategic Command. Strategic Command is a good game. I enjoy it. It's been fun to show off, but I would say this is the best war game in the Pacific theater of World War II of all time, and I don't even think it's close. And that's despite all of the serious limitations the game has in representing China and the Japanese ability to push there, and some of the Japanese being OP in other places, although for gameplay reasons, I know why you don't want them to be too weak, even if it might be more historical. But I think this is the best representation of the Pacific theater of operations in any war game, at least any computer war game ever made. Okay, so Viewfighters in Sydney. I'm not sure if we have any of those in Sydney. It looks like we've got a couple. We've got 2. There's no replacements right now. We could give them the Whirlaways. Give them the Whirlaways. We'll take a look at new units in a moment. How are those aircraft at Lido doing? They're hanging in there. 254th Armored Brigades across the mountains now on the roadways, so it's going to start moving south toward Pegu as well. 7th Armored's on its way to Akyab, then it'll make the cross over this river down this road, coastal road. We've got additional reinforcements like the Patia Lancers, which are going to defend Akyab as well. Mountain guns will go in to support them. We'll also put some troops into Ramir Island. Yeah, War in the East is I think it's a newer version of the game, so it's probably a little bit more polished in some ways. But and the War in the East 2 is coming out later this year. I definitely want to play that on the channel, cover that a bit. All right, so new units. Molman, what about Molman? The Japanese? They've got 3 units there. I think we estimated roughly 2 to 3 Royal Thai Infantry divisions are at Molman is my estimate. Probably 2 divisions, I think, is what we've actually cited between a couple of different battles, and then maybe an engineer unit. Aircraft losses were minimal last turn. 4 Japanese, 1 Allied, mostly all ops. No pilot losses for us last turn, so that's good news. Aircraft replacement pools are doing okay, I think. If we go ahead and we take out without pool, and then we go ahead and we take out the Soviets, because they like to make things confusing. When we take a look at what's in the pool, you can see we've 28 Helldivers, Kingfishers. We've got 40 Fulmars currently in our pool. We've got 38 A-24 Banshees. We've got 28 P-40E Warhawks, 24 P-36 Mohawks, which we're apparently not even producing any of. We just got them when we replaced different aircraft in different squadrons. We have 24 Vincents, 23 F4 Wildcats, 21 Catalinas, Dutch Catalinas. I don't know what the purpose of having the Texans are. Those are kind of, I think, probably mostly just for training. 20 Buffaloes, 19 Bolingbroke 4s, some Hudsons, some DB7Bs. I think those are, what are those? I don't even remember seeing those. Those are like Dutch medium bombers. They look almost like A-20s or something. 14 Albacores, 14 have been used, 14 are in the pool. We're making about 8 a month. 12 Air Cobras, making 36 of those a month. We've got 11 P-38s in the pool. We're not making any of them yet. They're still R&D. 11 Sea Hurricanes in the pool, 11 DC-3s in the Chinese pool. It'd be real nice to get some of those aircraft outfitted so we can suck some more supplies into China. 25 B-25C Mitchells in the Dutch Air Forces. So that's all that. That's probably boring enough to look at. Let's go ahead and take a look at ship availability. Yeah, we've not a lot coming soon. Some cargo ships, some troop transports, some corvettes, some subs. Nothing huge coming for a little bit. A handful of destroyers. The next big shipping that we're getting is the Atlanta and the Devonshire in 29 days each. And then I think we get a carrier like 2 months from now. 42 days, we get the Illustrious, the British carrier. 85 days, we get the Wasp, the U.S. carrier. 85 days, we also get the Balboa, the North Carolina, not the Balboa. Air combat, meanwhile, we did just recently receive the Formidable with her 12 Albacore torpedo bombers and her 16 Martlet 2s, which are F4F Wildcats. Balderson, thank you very much for the follow. So that's good. Meanwhile, the other American carrier, the Hornet, which just recently arrived, is on its way on map. It'll be on in 7 days, on its way to Pearl. We already showed where the other carriers are. So I think that's going to probably do it for tonight. I don't have a lot of other stuff to show at the moment. It'll be kind of a shorter stream, not a super momentous episode or anything. I don't even know how to close. Okay. 30-year playthrough world record. Yeah, hopefully. I don't know, Southern. He's making good time on his Dadman playthrough. He might finish his Dadman campaign before he finishes ours. But yeah. So that is that's the situation right now in March of 1942. Ramgar, thank you very much for the 100 bits again. One more turn hype. I can't do multiple turns. I don't control how many turns. You got to get XTRG to, like, he's not going to turn around a turn at, what is it, like 4 in the morning his time right now? But I appreciate the bits nonetheless. Stein, I also appreciate the sub, or the resub. And, oh my goodness, I can't see the other resub, but I got another resub earlier today. It was at 2 months. It wasn't like a G-Men, was it? Might have been Imperator, I'm not sure. Corfax 1982, thanks for the follow. Balderson, thanks for the follow earlier. And for everybody else who I can't see, can't call out, thank you for the continued support for the channel. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. And until next time, Sean Mack, that's who it was. Thank you as well. But we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, please feel free to leave your comments. And until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I'm out.